So if one thing that Reform UK have prided themselves on as a political party is the idea that they're patriotic, that they're there to stick up for the UK, for Britain, and for British people more broadly. They've said this multiple times, even though fundamentally, as a political party, they are beholden to the United States. They're up Donald Trump's arse, and fundamentally they're very happy for American megacorporations to essentially buy our country. They fundamentally believe in having British people beholden to American megacorporations because those American megacorporations fund people like Reform UK. That's fundamentally their position. They want to cut taxes for American megacorporations. They want to make it easier for American megacorporations to exploit workers by not voting for things like worker protections. And broadly, they want to bring American culture war slop to this country. And their ideology is based a lot on time on Americanisms. So they're not actually that patriotic. If you actually think about it, they like the idea of patriotism to essentially win over racists a lot of the time, but they're not really that patriotic in terms of sticking up for the UK first, especially when Nigel Farage goes to America and wants to force America to engage in punitive trade policy on us to try and get us to change our rules around things like incitement to violence in terms of quote-unquote free speech, which Ian Dale, a Tory, described as treacherous and traitorous, and he's correct to do so. So they're not very patriotic, and in fact they're very happy to undermine both British people and the British state if they in other countries if they think that it is politically efficacious for them to do so. Speaking of which, here is Reform UK Deputy Leader Richard Tice speaking with Gideon Sa'ar, who I believe is a foreign minister in the Israeli government. This is his first visit to Israel, apparently, and according to what Gideon Sa'ar is saying here, he expressed the position of Reform UK, opposing the British government's recognition of a Palestinian state. And of course, he's been thanked for standing by Israel. It's weird how so many politicians just happen to stand with Israel, a country on the other side of the world, in which they just happen to have very close relationships with and get paid trips to go to. Bit strange, isn't it? How close this relationship is, but regardless. Gideon Sa'ar also said that they were aware that there's widespread opposition in the UK to the British government's move of recognition of Palestinian state. We know to distinguish between the British people, among which we have many friends, and the current British government, which is very strange, right? Which is very strange that he says that. Because British people overwhelmingly support the recognition of Palestine. It's 44 to 18%. Again, I agree, Gideon Sa'ar, the British people and the British government are different. The British people have been far more anti-Israel than the British government for the whole time. We were pro-Palestinian statehood, even when Keir Starmer said it wasn't something that they would do and that it would reward terrorism. So we are more pro-Palestine than the Keir Starmer that you say is more pro-Palestinian than the public. So Gideon Sa'ar is just making shit up about the widespread opposition to the recognition of Palestine. Just fundamentally untrue, right? According to Declassified UK, Tice apologised for Labour's recognition, said it was a betrayal. Yeah, a betrayal of who? Your paymasters, Richard. Yeah, they had a good discussion about the important relationship and opportunities between the nations. Israel can rely on Reform UK. That doesn't seem very British patriot, does it? When you're out there going, our allegiance isn't to the current UK government's position. Our allegiance isn't even to the broader opinion of the British public. Our allegiance is to a foreign state. This is Richard Tice openly saying that he has the interests of Israel above the interests of the British public. If that isn't treason, I don't know what is. How can anyone even, pretend to be any kind of patriot when you are quite literally getting paid trips to foreign states to declare your allegiance to them over the interests of the British people and the opinions of the British people? Especially somebody who literally lives in Dubai with Isabel Oakeshott, you know? And the thing is, it's really important to understand. I've talked about this on stream before. Might put this in a big segment with what I talked about before, which is that Israel know that their support in the West is absolutely tanking, especially in countries like Spain and Italy and the United Kingdom. They're overwhelmingly despised by countries and populations in the West, not by their governments, who are pretty beholden to Israel in a lot of cases, although they're moving with public opinion, especially with the general strikes and stuff that we saw in Italy over the last week or so. Broadly, Israel know that they are losing the fight in terms of support for themselves over Palestine. And the Israeli government know this. They did polling in European countries and Western countries to find out what people's opinions were of Israel. They didn't like what they read. And there were specific recommendations that Dropsite News reported on in their reporting on the polls that they'd done on the opinions of people in the UK and in Spain and in other European countries. Their response was, well, if we want to shore up our support, we need to push Islamophobia. We need to essentially foment the collapse of social cohesion in European countries, right? To make our countries manifestly worse in terms of social cohesion, to protect their interests as a colonial apartheid ethno-state. This is why Israel, very happy to support people like Reform UK, very happy to fund people like Tommy Robinson. They are the vectors of Islamophobia. They are the vectors of Western chauvinism. They are the vectors of the opposition to things like international law and international treaties, as you've seen with people like Reform UK wanting to leave the Refugee Convention and the European Convention on Human Rights, etc., etc., is to try and essentially push societal collapse in Western countries purely for self-interested reasons of ensuring that Western countries remain loyal to Israel in the wake of their support plunging in the wake of the genocide in Gaza. There is a very strategic position that's being taken by the Israeli state in backing Reform UK. And the fact that Reform UK are happy to do this, they are happy to represent people who would tear our society apart, who would try and demonize large minority communities like Muslims in this country, at the behest of a foreign fucking state that is doing that expressly so that they can take our money to support it, so they can take American taxpayers' money to support their own free healthcare that Americans don't get by buying their politician through groups like AIPAC to protect their own interests at the expense of our own societies. If you're a Reform UK voter and you're watching this, right, and maybe you don't have an opinion on the conflict in Gaza, you don't have an opinion on the genocide, and you know what? Lots of people have loads of problems of their own. They don't really have the bandwidth to care about what's happening in the Middle East. I get it. Sure. You know what? I personally think a genocide is a really important thing, but you may have other concerns at this point in time. Even if you don't have any opinions on what's happening in the Middle East, do not expect the politicians that are supposed to represent you, that are supposed to be representing British people and the constituents in Parliament, are out there doing the bidding of foreign states who have expressed explicit desires to tear our own societies apart for their own financial and their own societal and for their own colonial benefit, right? You don't have to think that Israel is doing bad things. Of course, you'd be wrong. You don't even have to think that Israel necessarily aren't an ally, right? But the fact that they essentially have handmaidens, they have agents, not just in campaign groups such as their Zionist front groups that we have, who are out there trying to do their bidding in terms of trying to foment Islamophobia to shore up support for Israel, speaking about them as being the bulwark against Islam. There's a reason why Netanyahu on stage at the UN specifically talks about Israel as the bulwark against Islam. It's to push this idea that Islam is the problem and that the West is being defended by Israel in the region so they can keep getting our money and our weapons and our diplomatic and our geopolitical support, right? Do you not think that it is bad that we are essentially seeing agents of a foreign state pretending to represent you, your communities and your interests and their own constituents, whilst claiming to be patriotic? When in reality, the patriotism, the plastic patriotism of parties like Reform UK, of the right wing, is not actually about Britain. It's not about English people, it's not about British culture, otherwise they wouldn't want our culture to be swamped with American slop, which they're very happy to do so. Very happy to not just bring American culture wars, but American megacorporations to this country to eat away at our kind of cultural base that we've created in this country. They're very happy to do that, very, very happy to do that, because fundamentally it's not about Britain. It's not about the UK, it's not about English people at all. It's about Western chauvinism and Western geopolitical interests that they share with Israel as the bulwark against Islam in the Middle East, i.e. an apartheid ethno-state that's committing genocide. It's just a thought, right? It's just a thought. You may not agree with me on any economic issues and you support Reform UK because you want low taxes, etc., whatever it is. We may disagree on this, but you can at least agree with me that having politicians who are in hock to a foreign state of their own constituents is a bad thing. Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership to just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.